Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Bold predictions for this Florida State program heading into the 2024 season. I think one of those teams that it is fascinating to have this kind of conversation where you look at Florida State. I think a lot of outsiders looking at Florida State just kind of assume this team takes a step back with all the NFL talent that is now playing on Sundays. And I think a lot of Florida State fans are sitting there and saying, hey, there's a lot of young talent on this football team that we kind of expect to break out in 2024. Now we get all the opportunity to kind of call our shot heading into 2024, kind of predicting who are the breakout players for this Florida State program. Fired up to get into this one. Before we do one, just want to say I would love to hear from you guys in the comments section. I think every single Florida State fan listening to this has some sort of bold prediction or player that they believe in. Drop a bold prediction in the comments section. And if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. I can't thank the Florida State fans enough for all the support you guys have shown the boys over the last couple of weeks and months. And without further ado, let's get into this one. I want to start with, kind of a concept that I've been playing around with over the last couple of weeks and months. And that is, what does this rushing attack look like for Florida State? Where you go back to last season, it was the Trey Benson show, which you can't blame Mike Norvell for, because you look at Trey Benson. I don't know if there was a better running back in the country than Trey Benson in 2023. They didn't have another ball carrier go over 500 yards. My first bold prediction, they're going to have 3 of them in the 2024 season. And why I'm kind of confident in this prediction is, one, you have a better offensive line. Whether it's new guys coming in through the portal, TJ Ferguson, Richie Leonard, or just the unit being healthier and taking another step in the right direction, a unit that, we've seen take that step year over year over the last couple of seasons. I think you have a better offensive line. You have a quarterback that's going to get more utilized in the rushing attack. DJU's been very vocal. He likes being a ball carrier. He's a big body that wants to use his physicality, where Jordan Travis was a phenomenal athlete, but you couldn't run him as much with DJU because the frame wasn't what DJU is working with. And then you look at the running back room and say, there's going to be a lot of guys that are touching the ball in a lot of different situations. And why I'm going with 3 500-plus yard rushers is I think Mike Norvell is going to get to work in terms of utilizing all these different kind of ball carriers. So now we got to predict who the 500-yard rushers are going to be. I think you start with Roydell Williams. I think he's going to be the quote-unquote bell cow, if there is a bell cow. He's probably going to lead this team in rushing attempts in 2024. A very good running back coming from Alabama. We feel pretty good that he goes over 500 yards. Now, I think the next 2 candidates are, I'm going to say an either or. It's going to be either Lawrence Tuafili, who would probably be my pick, or Jalen Lucas. 2 guys that are maybe 2 of the most explosive players on this Florida State offense that Mike Norvell is not necessarily going to give 20-plus carries a game to, but you're going to see them touch the ball 5 to 10 times a game each, and they're going to hit explosive plays. Now, I think Lawrence Tuafili is a guy that's been within this program, kind of has emerged as the leader. I think he is going to be featured in this Florida State offense. And Jalen Lucas is a guy that anytime he touches the football, whether he's operating as a pass catcher or a running back, he can hit the big play. I'm going to lean Lawrence Tuafili because I think he's going to be utilized a little bit more as a ball carrier, versus Jalen Lucas might be a little bit of a slot wide receiver, gadget kind of guy where, hey, we know Mike Norvell is going to dial up some explosive plays with Jalen Lucas. So I got Roydell Williams, Lawrence Tuafili. Then my last pick is either Kazai Holmes or Cam Davis. In terms of how ready is Cam Davis? If Cam Davis, which we've all seen the pictures of Cam Davis, if he is ready to go as a true freshman, not necessarily from a physical standpoint, we've seen the pictures. We know he's ready physically, a little bit more from pass protection, between the ears type stuff. Or Kazai Holmes, who I know a lot of Florida State fans are banging the table for. I think one of those guys kind of emerges. And then potentially even DJU at the quarterback spot, who, again, is going to be asked to run the football plenty for Florida State in 2024. What did we just name? 7 guys? I think 3 of them go for over 500 yards in the 2024 season. It's going to look different, the rushing attack. But I fully believe Mike Norvell, in terms of his very smart offensive brain, getting all these guys incorporated in this offense behind an offensive line that I think is going to be better. Give me 3 500-plus yard rushers in the 2024 season. Going to number 2, and let's talk about a player that I'll just put my hand up and say I think I've been sleeping on during this offseason. I think a lot of our emphasis on this wide receiver room has gone to the newcomers, guys like Malik Benson, or the young studs like Hakeem Williams. A guy that just no one's talking about besides the Florida State fans in the comment section who made me go back and watch Ja'Kai Douglas a little bit more in the 2023 year. I think Ja'Kai Douglas is going to be the second on the team in receiving yards. Now, I think Malik Benson is going to be your wide receiver one. I think that if you're looking at best case scenarios for Florida State, it's with Malik Benson as your top pass catcher, because that means he put it together and emerged as a true wide receiver one at the Power 5 level. Now, I think the question is, what's the supporting cast going to look like? You could go so many different ways. I think a couple of weeks ago, before you guys started banging the table, I probably would have leaned Hakeem Williams or Dustin Hill before the injury. Now I went back and looked at Ja'Kai Douglas, a guy that was kind of utilized all over the football field early in his career, kind of settled into that slot wide receiver role. I mean, he's a veteran that's played a lot of football for Florida State, has been within this program, and is a premier playmaker with the football in his hands. You lose guys like Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson. You need new playmakers to step up. I think Ja'Kai Douglas can be that guy as a more polished route runner, wide receiver going into year 5 of his college football career. You look at Ja'Kai Douglas and kind of what made me believe in this. You go back to the 2023 season. I want to make sure I get these numbers right. He had one game where he had more than 5 targets. He went for 115 yards against Pitt. I think if this guy's going to have a little bit more opportunity with guys like Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson going to the NFL, I think Ja'Kai Douglas could emerge as a difference maker, as a pass catcher for Florida State. And he's so easy to get involved. I mean, whether it's some screens, whether it's some kind of short intermediate route tree stuff, some easy access throws where, hey, we're just going to get the ball to Ja'Kai Douglas and let him work after the catch. He's also a guy that can blow the top off defenses. And we all know DJU wants to push the football down to that deeper third. I am buying stock in Ja'Kai Douglas heading into the 2024 season. Going to the defensive side of the football, I want to talk about this Florida State pass rush, another unit that I feel like people will look at from the outside and say, you lose Jared Verse, you lose not Patrick Payton, he's still on the team, you lose Braden Fisk. This pass rush is going to take a step back. And I don't know if there's going to be a guy that replaces Jared Verse, because I truly think Jared Verse was just kind of a different level in that 2024 season or 2023 season. That being said, one of the things that I think made Florida State's pass rush so special in 2023, a top 5 pass rush in the country, was it wasn't just Jared Verse. It wasn't just Braden Fisk. It was a lot of different contributors that could win their one-on-one matchups when they had the opportunity. So obviously you start with a guy like Patrick Payton, who's going to get a little bit more attention now that Jared Verse is playing in the NFL. He's still a guy that's one of the best pure pass rushers in the country. He's going to go for 5+ sacks. I think the second one I'm going to lean into is Marvin Jones Jr. I think it's going to be a similar conversation where Patrick Payton gets a lot of the attention, and so Marvin Jones Jr. gets some beneficial matchups. I think he goes for 5+ sacks, a guy that from a physical trait standpoint is ready to go. And from what you read in spring practice, is a guy that with more opportunity that he didn't have at Georgia, going to be very good for Florida State. Now, the question is, who are the other 2 guys that step up? I think the Florida State fans who've been rocking with the fellas know that I'm going to go with Sione Lolea from Oregon State. He's not going to be the flashy pass rusher, but he's going to be a guy that, one, has an exceptional motor, creates a lot of havoc. He's one of those guys that just puts himself in a ton of situations to get sacks. I think he's going to run into 5 sacks in the 2024 season. And then my last pick is going to be either Daryl Jackson or Joshua Farmer on the inside. Again, you go back to 2023, they had 5 players with over 5 sacks. I think you're going to have probably 4 players that have 5+ sacks. Again, headlined by guys like Patrick Payton, but I think you have a lot of different playmakers spread out along this defensive line that can emerge as elite pass rushers. So give me a Florida State front 7. I think DJ Lundy could be a guy too, because we know they like to send their backers on blitzes. Kalen DeLoach had 7 sacks last year. Certainly could be in that conversation. I think, yes, it's going to be hard to replace Jared Verse. I think they're going to be able to replace him kind of using that committee approach where they just got a bunch of guys that are going to be contributing in the pass rush. Going to number 4, and this is not even a bold prediction. This is just a prediction. Top 5 secondary in the country. It was top 5 last year. Number 1 in the country in completion percentage. A 48% completion percentage given up, which is an absolute ludicrous number. I've been doing this for a while. I haven't seen a number that low. You return A.Z. Thomas, Fentrell Cypress, two of the better, if not the two best cornerbacks in the ACC heading into the 2024 year. Now, you look at the nickel spot, Earl Little Jr. comes in and kind of just squeezed out Greedy Vance. And I thought Greedy Vance was a really good football player. So after spring practice, when Greedy Vance hit the portal, I kind of thought to myself, yeah, Earl Little Jr. is probably going to be that guy. And then I think, secondly, you look at the safety spot. You bring back Shaheem Brown. I think Conrad Hussey steps up into a major role as a safety. You combine that with a very good pass rush that Florida State's expected to have, I think, from a statistical category. Give me Florida State having the top 5 secondary in the country once again in the 2024 season. Those are my bold predictions. Would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. Again, all the support. It absolutely means the world to the boys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later.